Hey there, everybody. So today is a different kind of a show. I've had a lot of people asking me to do a show where it's just myself sharing thoughts and talking. After having 30 something episodes now where I've interviewed other shop owners, I definitely have, the show took an interesting twist or maybe a turn I wasn't originally expecting. And I don't know if there's causality or correlation there, but it moved into more of, cultural sort of discussions in people's shops, core values, things of that nature, and less about the machinery and the metrics. And I have a suspicion there's some causality there. That the shops that are most successful really place high value on those things, which are a little less tangible, right? They're not hard numbers. They're not, getting a machine with X RPM and X travel and capabilities, number of axes, whatever, and more on empowering people, making sure their teams are really bought into their company vision and mission. They are in really good alignment with what the company cares about as an organization, which comes from the leaders and owners, of course, when done well. And so I thought I would, and I quite honestly do not have this very well planned out. Just kind of decided to do this a bit of on the spur of the moment. But I'm going to kind of go through some of the questions that I ask my own guests and share a bit of the journey of my shop. And then reflect on what I've heard from other guests of the show. So I'll start with getting to share a little bit about my journey for those that maybe haven't heard as much about ProCNC, and we'll kind of go from there. So in college, and my partners and I that started ProCNC, all went to a program called the Vehicle Research Institute here in Bellingham, Washington. It's actually just right up on the hill. I can see the university from where I sit across the bay. And it was actually started, this program, this Vehicle Research Institute, was started by my business partner Kelsey's uncle, Uncle Mike Seal, Dr. Seal, we called him. And he loved cars, and he was actually an education major originally. I think that's what his PhD was in. But he wanted a place where he could experiment with vehicles and build things, and sort of a crazy mad scientist laboratory, if you will. And that's in many ways what it was. But each year, there would be a number of different college competitions that the university would participate in. And so on my first day of class, Kelsey and I actually got paired up as lab partners. And if you go back and listen to the episode where I actually interviewed Kelsey, we share some of the story there as well. But we got paired up as lab partners in our very first class on the very first day of school, E-Tech 280, which was an engine class where we would learn about combustion engines. And then the lab part was to tear down a motorcycle engine that was sitting on a workbench, tear it all down to individual components, put it all back together, and then we had to get it running again, which was a great, fun project. Anyhow, we got paired up, enjoyed working together, and then both joined the team for Formula SAE, which is such an incredible program put on by the Society of Automotive Engineers, where universities around the world at this point come together in various regional competitions and compete with other universities with their own little race cars that they've designed and built. And just go head to head with other colleges or universities. And so through this process of every year designing and building a car, and then having just incredible access to CNC machines, as well as composites labs and engine dynos and all the things that we had there at the VRI, we just fell in love with machining and working together as a team, and decided we didn't want to go out into the world, scatter to the winds, I like to say, and just go get different jobs. We wanted to keep working together. So there was actually 6 of us, count it 6, that joined the company or started the company together. was funded by Kelsey's older brother, Darcy, who was tangentially in the program, took some classes and stuff. And he took out a second mortgage on his house. And that was enough money to buy a Haas VF4 and rent a very small 2,000 square foot warehouse space near Seattle, a little town called Monroe, Washington, and started knocking on doors. So we started out small. We had a few connections from university, got a few little jobs for various tooling items, or a snowshoe mold from a guy that was a professor of composites that went off into industry, and a few other little jobs like that. We've dabbled in some automotive stuff. Some tooling, some aerospace stuff, just whatever we could find. I very quickly got into the role of the salesperson and estimator, while Kelsey and Tim and Mark and some of the other guys got more involved in operations or, the finance side of things. And we did some medical device stuff. Anyway, so we started growing, and we were a pretty close-knit, group. Obviously, having gone through the VRI together and all these projects every single year, super intensive. I mean, there were literally weeks we'd work 120 hours a week on the cars, and it was, and then taking a full class load as well. So we knew that we worked well together, and that started, I think, a little bit of our own culture. We'd even bring in, actually at the very beginning, because we really weren't paying ourselves much of anything at all for the first many months. We'd bring in lunch and all sit together and have lunch together. And ultimately we started bringing in just food, like sandwich makings and lunch foods that we put in our little kitchen, and people could just make themselves a sandwich. And we kept doing that once we had employees. It wasn't just for the owners. And it was, as many small shops do, it was a very family feel. And even though none of us were related to each other, except for Kelsey and Darcy, those two, of course, were being brothers. But anyway, so we didn't have any established core values and none of that kind of stuff. But that's kind of how I think our culture started. And as far as clients and what we served, like I said, a little bit of everything. But eventually, of course, being here in the Northwest, a little bit got kind of pulled into the aerospace business more. There was lots of companies in the area that made, hardware and equipment that went into airplanes. We got involved in cockpit display components, into cabin interior components, lots of things in the galleys, lots of things in the laboratories, lots of things on the seats and the video arms, and things for first class seats and business class seats, high cosmetic requirements, things like that. And some of those jobs kicked our butt. I tell you, they were, whenever you get into a new industry, they have new requirements, whether it's tolerances or materials or cosmetic requirements or sizes or flatnesses, who knows what. And you just got to, do your best to be thorough, understand the requirements, and, do your best to meet or exceed them. One thing I've shared a few times is when it came to finding work, we subscribed to the local business journal. Websites were still just barely a thing, in 97. But we did subscribe to the local, business journal, and it'd look for companies that, might have an article about them or something where they, were a supplier to Boeing or some, telecom industry or medical. And we'd look through, local listings and just try to, do cold calling, reach out via phone or email, and try to get an appointment with the buyer. Ultimately, we made up this really cool little aluminum briefcase and filled it with foam, and then cut out the foam and put in little, a sample of different types of parts that we made. And I would take that along with some brochures and business cards, and even a bit of a photo album printed out of things that were too big for me to carry around, and I'd try to get an appointment with a buyer, and I'd go sit with them in their conference room, or maybe take them to lunch if they were open to that. And I'd open up my parts case and I'd take things out and I'd set it on the table in front of them and let them pick up and look at and handle the parts we made. And they could see the attention to detail, the craftsmanship, various finishes, various geometries, and we'd talk about those things. And they'd say, "Oh, you know what? We have a part that's really similar to this. These are really nice looking parts," and that would often turn into RFQs, and that would often follow up with purchase orders. And so we did that for many years. I can't claim to say that we were brilliant about doing it as reliably as we should have. There were definitely lots of feast or famine cycles where we'd do some sales, do some marketing, and then we'd get busy. And of course, being a small shop, I'd get sucked into helping get the orders through, doing programming, doing machine setups, doing running parts, and then stop doing sales for a while. And then that cycle would continue again when that work then dried up. And I'd go out and do some sales, and we'd get some more work. So that was a hard lesson to learn, that you always have to be sales driven. And we didn't come up with that ourselves. When after 9/11 happened and the aerospace industry just got decimated for many months, we almost went out of business. We didn't want to lay off any of our employees because they were like family to us. And so we just kept employing them and having them work on non-job related things. And while that was a nice idea, ultimately we came to the point where we did have to do some layoffs, or else we wouldn't have been able to pay our rent and the power bill and all those other things that were our machine leases. So learned that lesson the hard way. And I will give credit to one of our business partners, Mark, at the time, who's still a dear friend today, and he reached out to and connected with the Small Business Development Center at our local university. And we got hooked up with an advisor. His name was Tom. And he's the one that really helped us through that period of time to come out the other side without having to go through bankruptcy. And that was one of our first really good lessons, that we didn't know everything, even though we thought we were brilliant business people, because this first 4 years of our business was relatively easy because the economy was really strong. We definitely, ate some humble pie and realized that we needed help. And from then on, we did that lots. We reached out to our local MEP, or actually they probably started calling on us, but we engaged with our local MEP, which is an incredible organization nationwide. They helped us get ISO and AS9100 certified, helped us get really started into our lean journey, which was immensely transformational for us. I know a lot of shops don't really love the concept and word of lean, but I can tell you, when applied well, and well to me means engaging with the employees in a way that they really buy into and understand why it's important to the organization and why it's important to them personally. If they get frustrated by doing something the same way over and over again that's efficient, or having to do something that's clearly not value added to the client, we trained our employees in the 7 wastes of the Toyota production system, plus a few extras, and train them to identify when they were doing those things, and then ultimately write down a little newspaper ticket of what the waste was, what they were doing, and then we'd tackle those one at a time. And we did thousands of tickets over many years. It was really, very small incremental improvements, along with some bigger, Kaizen blitzes where we'd redo a whole department over the course of a few days or something. But I can tell you, if you put in the effort and you do it well and you engage with people, and it's not just something you try 1 month and then it falls off again, it can be pretty amazing. And I've seen some shops recently that have really bought into that process and that concept and have had just incredible success with it. So ultimately, we grew over the next many years. Obviously, our software product, ProShop, became a really important backbone and foundation to allow us to grow, 50 to 100% some years. And it just would have gotten way too chaotic if we had stuck with our old spreadsheets, or we think bought some other system that was paper based and had still a lot of spreadsheets and paper flown around the shop. I think ultimately we when we sold the shop in 2014 with about 75 people doing about 11 or so million in revenue, I think we were probably 70% aerospace and defense and 30%, commercial, medical, various other, ancillary industries for us. We actually we did almost no direct Boeing work except for tooling and other things supporting them. We did not do direct Boeing flyaway parts. So we actually tried to avoid that because we had heard so many stories about how, Boeing becomes such a massive client for a lot of shops. And when they say jump, they got to jump. And if they pull back their work, they're left, just completely devastated. So we tried very hard, not always successfully, to make sure that we didn't have any one client greater than about 10% of our business. And there were times where we'd have one come on really heavy for a year or so, and they might grow up to 20% or so, but we'd try very hard to go out and get new customers to rebalance that. We didn't want to feel exposed that we had too many eggs in one basket. And as far as what we specialized in and what made our shop unique, we had an incredible team and incredible culture that did such a great job for our customers. And it was not, we never had that much of a difficult time hiring. Now, back in the early 2000s, it was different than it is today. It's definitely harder to hire today, but the word got out in the local machinist community that we were just an amazing place to work. We had many employees that said it was the best place they'd ever worked before. And, not to toot our own horn, but we really tried hard to be super kind people, be, right there with them. For example, when we redid our offices with the whole lean concept, we tore down all the walls. We never even had our own, the owners never had their own offices with walls and doors. We were in little cubicles right amongst everybody else. And at some point we needed more spaces than we had cubicles. And so we tore down those walls and we all went to small little stand-up desks that were 3 feet long. And ours were just right next to everybody else's, for example. And so we were always very approachable, never above cleaning the toilets or doing whatever we needed to do. And I think that helped create that culture that people cared about. We were also very transparent with our finances. Every month we would share, how much money we made or lost, jobs that went well, jobs that didn't go well. And when things didn't go well or did, we would always look at the process, especially when they didn't go well. If they went well, we would celebrate individual people. But if it didn't go well, we wouldn't beat any particular person up. We would talk about where the process had a failure. Did I misquote a job, right? And think it was going to take an hour of cut time when it was actually 3 hours of cut time? Or did we not do a careful enough contract review and we missed this clause that just bit us in the butt later because it added a level of difficulty or something that we missed? Or did the material, come in all twisted and we didn't find that in receiving inspection? And so we might want to add a better, thorough, receiving inspection process. That's no one's fault. Ultimately, I suppose you could say it was the mill that made the metal, but as far as what we could control internally, we could build better processes. And we tried to do it in a way that was scalable and not too onerous on any particular employee to do that process. And that meant a lot of software tools, to be honest, that in our Kaizen boards, especially in the office, but all around the whole shop, we had, I think, ultimately 5 different Kaizen teams always working on improvement activities. And they'd meet weekly and they'd build things and make stuff and move things around and label things and reorganize things. But some of those solutions were software solutions. And we would build a new feature or a new dashboard or a new page or a new functionality, into ProShop. And that helped to eliminate a waste that we no longer needed to worry about going forward, because we had a system that would handle that and really eliminate future fires from starting when we could, get rid of the kindling or the flammable materials, if you will, up earlier in the process. And so that was just sort of an important element of the way we grew our company. Big events. We did have to move once. That was super expensive, super difficult. We moved probably an hour and a half away from where the facility was originally. And what can I say about that? My episode with KMM, Eric and John, go listen to that one if you want to learn about how to do right, how to move a facility, design it, build it. They did a much better job than we did at moving their facilities. But anyway, that's all I have to share about that. Nothing too big there. Certifications. So, like I said, we started our shop in '97. In 2004, we decided to get ISO certified, and we engaged, as I mentioned, with our local MEP, which is today called Impact Washington, and they were fantastic. We worked with a lady named Sarah Stewart, who specialized in doing certifications like ISO and AS and Lean also at the same time. And so trying to do it in a lean way. And I think some of the concepts she helped us to understand really led to us building the QMS modules so that we did in ProShop. And in fact, she was somewhat incredulous that we were going to handle all the things that ISO and AS required by building software tools to do that. But that's indeed what we did. And very quickly, we had these modules in place that really became the foundation of the QMS and helped us, meet the requirements of the certifications without, just having to hire a bunch of people to do this overhead work and push paper and fill out forms and keep records and things like that. That was, we didn't realize how important that would become to our company. And I will say about certifications, and I've heard this from many of my former guests, is that certifications are great for getting a foot in the door at companies that require them, that won't even talk to you if you don't have them. But I'd say more importantly than that even is the impact that it has on the operations of a company. The ability to have, established manufacturing and business processes that allow repeatable performance, and have that, especially with AS Standard 100 and with the Rev C D version, I guess both, the focus on risk and continuous improvement as well, just ties right in with all the lean stuff that we were doing about trying to always get better for our clients. And so that was pretty transformational. And so I tell people when they, are considering getting, a certification like that, if the industries that you're trying to get into require those, then absolutely, it's great for that reason. But that should not be your main motivation. Your main motivation should be to build really repeatable, awesome business processes and learn. You have to have a foundation of the way you do something in order to have the context for improvements that you need to make to those processes. If you're winging it every time, you are not going to have a strong foundation to build on top of. And I know that's sometimes counterintuitive to a lot of shop owners, that it's just too much time to have a formal contract review process, right? Just take the order and throw it over the wall to the machine shop. But I can tell you, after decades of experience now, the companies that are the most successful are the ones that have leaned the most into really working on building a culture where business processes are valued, and building systems or buying systems that can help manage those processes in an efficient way. So take that for what it's worth. I've already talked about diversification of our clients. I'm just going through the list of questions I ask people. What our culture was like I said, I think being transparent with employees is really important. If they can get bought into what the vision of the company is and how what they do on a daily basis or a weekly or monthly basis contributes to that vision, that's really important to people, and especially the younger generation these days. They care about doing something that's meaningful to them, which I think is a wonderful quality. If you can stereotype a generation, they care about being involved in something they believe in, and I think there's so many reasons why machining and manufacturing is so important to our countries, to our economies, and it's not that hard to get people excited and bought into. That's why we are in business today. Is to support the nation, the country, the economy. Providing good solid jobs for people, helping build back local communities that might have done manufacturing decades ago, but kind of lost it, unfortunately, for many decades. So anyway, so that ties into mission and vision and core values, and that transparency is just a big part of that. I ask my guests about succession planning, and we originally planned to just have our shop for a long time. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. So some of you may know that coming from the car program we did, we actually really wanted to start a little niche car company, and we had this vision for the way we designed and built some of the race cars we made, and we could turn that into a very niche sort of road going, 2-seat high performance sports car type of thing. For those that might be automotive geeks, way back in the day, Panos was a kind of a cool inspirational company. Lotus was very much so as well. They obviously got much bigger over the years, but anyway, we originally wanted to start this niche car company, but we didn't have the money to do that, being recent college graduates. So we didn't have millions of dollars to start with and build a facility and, go into production or anything like that. But we very naively thought that if we built a machine shop, which needed the same kinds of equipment and people and processes and infrastructure, because our car was going to be extremely machining centric in the way it was constructed. We thought that was a good first step, if you will, a stepping stone to be able to ultimately, building a prototype of our car and going and getting some funding and then making a go of it. And the naive part for us was assuming that after, a 10, 12-hour day at the shop, we'd be really excited about jumping on the computer, designing some car parts or some systems, and then, doing some prototypes and making some parts and starting to build out this car. And I'll tell you, and this is when we were learning that the machining industry is the hardest business in the world. We were just not up for that at the end of the day or the end of the week, right? We wanted some downtime, go spend time with our families. Didn't want to break into a machine setup to make a prototype upright, for our car. So we just never made the traction that we wanted to there. But then we ended up with this machine shop that was much larger than we ever anticipated it to be. But to come back to my point about succession planning, as part of, actually originally, I suppose, the consulting and coaching that we got from Tom at the Small Business Development Center, we learned about the importance of business process and the importance of having people and teams in places that would run the business. And so we ultimately tried to work ourselves out of a job, right? Kelsey, for example, he was one of our main setup guys and programmers and machinists. And he eventually became, the lead. And then he, put someone else in the lead position and, did other things and worked more on business improvement. And I was deep in estimating and sales. And then ultimately we hired an estimator, and then we hired a salesperson, and really tried, as we, within the last few years of our business, kind of had this vision that we were going to sell it and go off and do our software. We really focused heavily on making sure the business could run without us. And I think that's a pitfall that a lot of shop owners find themselves in. They realize that they are the experts. They know how to do programming or set up or make fixtures or sell, better than anyone they can hire. But I'll tell you, even if someone does something at 80% of what you can do, but they can do it instead of you, that is a win, right? 80% and done with you not doing it is better than 100% and you being in the weeds every day doing that. So, and sometimes if you find the right people and you coach and you train, you can get people doing 110 or 20% of what you would do, because they have a natural talent for something that, you as a jack of all trades, master of none, may not get as proficient at. And so we definitely had employees that were better than us at certain aspects of the business. And we would, empower them to do great work. And that really led, I think, when we went through the process of selling the shop, and I'll just elaborate on that a little bit. We found, after some research, we found a firm that would help bring us to market. They would, they took a flat percentage or a flat rate, and then I think a flat fee, and then a percentage of the sale, right? So they brought us to market. They came and did some marketing on us, advised us on things we needed to have in place. Ultimately created a book about the company that got sent to, ultimately created a one-page flyer, an anonymous one-page flyer that got sent to lots of different groups and investment lists, with thousands of people on it, or companies that wanted to buy manufacturing companies. And then a certain number of those reached out, and they signed an NDA, and they got the book that actually disclosed who we were. And then a certain number of those, came to do visits and submitted letters of intent. And so we filtered it down through this process, and ultimately, I think I don't even remember, maybe 5 or 6 companies offering on us, how much they were willing to pay for the company and what their intentions were with the company. But we would not, and we did pretty well as a multiple of our EBITDA. Not as good as some, I'll tell you that much. I've heard some crazy stories over the years, but did pretty well. And but it wouldn't have been possible without having already kind of worked ourselves out of a job. It was obvious that the company could run itself with the executive team in place, and the owners, co-founders were not 100% necessary to keep jobs moving through the facility. So if you do have an intention to one day exit your business, that is something that is well worth understanding, and having strategic plans that you work on over many years to work yourself out of a job. And it's easier said than done, absolutely. But when it comes to it, that is a necessary part of the process. And interestingly enough, when we signed our deal, I think it was on January 30th, maybe 31st, 2014. The very next Monday morning, my 2 partners, Kelsey and Darcy, did not come back to work. The owners wanted them out the door, so there was no ambiguity about who was in charge. And the fact that they could do that, be there one day on a Friday and not there the next Monday morning, was a testament to the fact that we had built a team that could execute on jobs and do everything that it was needed. I did stay on because I was the main customer facing person, and the new owners very I think rightfully so, wanted to make sure that our customer base didn't freak out. So he and I together, went and visited all the customers over the course of the next weeks and months, sat down face to face, had lunches and conversations, and shared with them, what this meant to the company, what this meant to them as customers, and this transition was very smooth, and that company is still going well today. Let's see, what else do I ask people that I have time to elaborate on? Let's see here. Awkward pause. Biggest wins, best strategic moves. I've already elaborated on some of those. It was ultimately it was building a culture of people that were all in very much alignment with our vision, with what we wanted to do. That by far, delivering great parts on time, with good paperwork, that's the business of what we delivered. That's what we got paid for. But really our business was building people and building teams. And those folks really, ran the business ultimately. They helped build the systems. They cared deeply about the success of the organization. They, took it on themselves to have that, to embrace that continuous improvement mindset that we, helped to instill. I will share one best move that I haven't spoken to as of yet. Oh, what year was it? It was probably around 2009, 2010, perhaps, where we were coming out of the sort of the semi-recession after the financial crisis. And quite honestly, for us, I know that period of time was just devastating to many shops. For us, it wasn't that bad, not nearly as bad as 2001. And that was because we had been through it before. We kind of knew the signals of what to look for as the economy softened. And we were also much more diversified across multiple industries by 2008, early 2009. So we weathered that with, I think, maybe a 10% reduction in revenue over the lowest dip. But because we were, and we never laid anyone off through that period, we just very consciously, the owners cut back their salaries. We went to maybe, 32 hours a week for a lot of folks. We did whatever we could to kind of share the load amongst the team, taking the major portion of it ourselves as the owners. And we were able to weather without laying anyone off. And then and we invested in, new processes and things. And so when things started roaring back to life, we took serious advantage of that. And many of our competitors had gone out of business. And so it was an incredible time, 2010 and beyond. But one thing that I'd also sort of give credit to for our sort of great financial success in that post financial crisis period was we thought about what can we do to differentiate ourselves from the literally thousands of shops and hundreds in Western Washington, the Pacific Northwest. And we decided that really leaning into becoming a strategic partner to our customers was one of the ways that we were going to succeed. And we didn't have any super fancy machines. We had some Haas's, we had some Morisikis, we had various other machines, some Toyotas, some robo drills, but nothing that just was particularly wowing to anybody. So we really leaned into partnering with the engineers and becoming a super valuable asset to them at our clients. So we started a Design for Manufacturability newsletter and put all of the engineers, from our customers on it, or had them opt into that, if you will. And then for a period of time, we found an online website that catered to design engineers, mechanical engineers, and they had the ability to basically do an email on our behalf. We would sort of rent their email list, and they would send out emails for us, and we did some emails about design for manufacturability. And the call to action on the email was to sign up for our DFM newsletter. And so that worked amazingly well. We eventually had thousands of engineers and buyers, on that email list. And every single month, reliably, we would publish a newsletter about design for manufacturability from the perspective of a machine shop that is getting drawings and models that are really kind of subpar when it comes to manufacturability and machinability. And so we would talk about general concepts, whether it's length to diameter ratio or undercuts or cosmetic surfaces or engraving or tolerance stacks or whatever it might be, thread depths to hole depths and floor thicknesses on the other side. Those of you in the industry will know exactly what I mean by talking about all those things. And so we started doing this, and we definitely got RFQs from engineers. They're like, hey, really love what you're doing. Can you take a look at this drawing? And then ultimately we had people ask, hey, the newsletters are great, but we want more. We want to really dive deep on this because our engineers are getting some of this great knowledge, but only a little bit at a time every month. So we actually ended up creating a half-day workshop, like a 4-hour DFM boot camp. And we would go on site to a customer and offer for free. It was not always free, actually. It was free for clients. We charged for non-clients. And we would, do this workshop where we really dug in deep to all these topics. And I'll tell you that was amazing. We did, I think, 25 or 30 of those over the course of a few years. I got to go to Germany. I went to a NASA facility down in Louisiana. It was super cool. But when you and then for some of our local and biggest clients, we also did what we called office hours. So we would sit there with their design engineer teams at their desks, going through new projects, new designs, and quite honestly, just offering our guidance. We even got pulled into, looking at injection molded parts and sheet metal parts, which we never made, but we were happy to share at least the limited, perspective that we had on that. And when you can become an undeniably valuable asset as a partner to your customers, that builds loyalty and that builds trust. And, and we didn't expect that we were going to get an RFQ every single time that we went and did one of those workshops or anything, but we were just investing in the relationship, and we knew very likely that was going to come back in spades, and it definitely did. That turned into, hey, we need 5 of these next week, and you do a quick prototype run, and then eventually, you already did the prototypes. Let's go into production, and you guys already have the fixturing, and you helped us cut the costs out, right? I remember one project, it was a video arm for a client that went into a business class seat. And in 20 minutes, literally sitting with them for 20 minutes and changing some radiuses and some tolerance call outs and stuff, we cut down like 20% of the cost, which if you extrapolate out what the value was on an annual basis, it was like $100,000. And we saved them $100,000 in 20 minutes. And so that just built, again, incredible loyalty. So what to take away from that, I would encourage you to try to make yourselves essential to your customers. There's lots of creative ways to do that. And hopefully the one I shared with you will inspire at least some ideas for you. So I need to wrap this episode up, but it was fun to chat with you. I think I will probably want to do this again. When this releases, if you have listened to it and found value in this, please share it. Share it on LinkedIn or wherever. Tag me, tag Machine Shop Mastery. Let me know what you found valuable. I definitely want to continue to make this this podcast just immensely valuable to people that want to have thriving machine shops and precision manufacturing companies. And I genuinely, earnestly hope I'm doing that for you. And I also would like to put out the call. I've interviewed lots of people that I know, a few that I don't know, but I am looking for some really cool shop owners, especially of larger, more established shops that have some serious history behind them, to share their stories. So if that sounds like you or someone you know, please reach out to me. Probably the easiest way is through LinkedIn. Just connect with me or send me a message, direct message, and we'll start the conversation. So thank you so much for your time today. It was fun to chat with you all. Hopefully you again found value, and we'll talk to you again soon.